Shinoi Master Bracious over here. All right, you like seeing if they're fun. Oh, I see. Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. Chapter 12, Perek Yud Beis. Okay. Hilchos Malchos Asuros, Perek Yud Beis, page 494, continuing the second of the three prakim that talk about Yayin Nesech. What's an example of a touch that a guy touches wine? I thought I said everything. I'm sorry. Hilchos Malchos Asuros, Perek Yud Beis, page 494 in this Rambam. Okay, what's an example of a touch that a guy would touch wine that makes the wine usher? He touches the wine directly with his own body, the other with his hand, whatever. Another limb, which is normal to do yain nesach to so to speak, say l'chaim to avodah zarah by moving the wine, by swishing the wine or pouring the wine for the avodah zarah. Libation, exactly. But libation usually means pouring it on the like pouring it. But over here, you see just moving it in any of the four directions. Not up and down, but any of the four directions in any fashion is like a l'chaim kaviyachol. Sorry, lack of taste, poor tasting words for the avodah zarah. Be a shach, and then he shakes in that fashion. So when he does it with his hand or another limb, which is normal to do it with, and I don't know what limb that would be because the feet that Rambam said apparently it's not an issue. So whichever fashion the avodah zarah does it without any limb, hands or others, that makes it usher. If how he puts his hand to the barrel. You grab his hand. And before he pulls it out, so he puts his hand in. Obviously, it moves because of that. But he doesn't actually make a movement, causes the wine to move, other than the displacement of his hand. And then he can't move it because you're holding on to it. Then you open the barrel from the bottom until the wine actually drains. And it goes down to the point that now his hand is no longer submerged in the wine. The wine is not also because he didn't move it back and forth. He didn't swish it. The purpose is via shach sheikh. We said before that's what's necessary to make it also. That didn't happen. If the guy holds an open, we'll say why dafka open later, but he takes an open barrel of wine, open vessel of wine of some kind of bottle or cup, and he shakes it from side to side. Even though he didn't pick the keli up off the ground at all or off the surface, who didn't touch the wine, but Nesiyan, the wine becomes usher because he moved it from side to side and possibly recognition of his avodah zarah, and therefore it's usher. So that's when it becomes usher. Base, not all kli shall yain big yain. If he picks up a container of wine and he pours it out, even though he didn't move it side to side, because the wine is moving as a result of his power, and it's moving from inside to outside. However, excuse me, not aval. If he just picks it up and he puts it back down, he doesn't move it side to side. He didn't touch the wine. Mutter, in that case, is mutter. Because again, if you just stop picking it up and down, that's not answering the wine, apparently. It's dafka only if he moves it side to side in some fashion. When he pours the wine in the first example of Chabez, then that's considered moving it from side to side. Gimel. If a guy was holding a container of wine on the ground, and the yid's pouring wine into it, the wine's mutter because the guy doesn't move it. Even though maybe the barrel is like a type of barrel that the guy has to. Now I was going to say that maybe it's flimsy and he's holding it up. That could be a problem. But Pasha, it's a regular barrel. The guy is holding on to it. Fine, that's why it's mutter. But here's the point. What if he moves the barrel when that happens, or after that happens? Then the wine's usher because now the wine in it has moved from side to side because of his contribution, his movement.
So the underlying theme here was it's not like touching a piece of tumah. It's not like
right.
It's the concept of nisuch chayayin
Right.
a big zara.
Right.
But why, if he touches it, that makes it a little bit more of like being menasach to a big zara?
Because in order to be menasach, the standard way is you swish it in that fashion.
No, the moving it has to do with that's when you pour it.
Yeah.
But just touching the wine.
Oh, so just touching is not a problem.
So
the issue is if he touches it and then moves the wine. He moves it either by holding the wine on the outside of the keli, moving the keli, or he moves it by putting his hand inside submerging it and then moving it that way. Those types of movements, that's the issue. Dal kli sasam, a sealed keli, a closed barrel. The graze allowed to move from place to place. Even though the wine is moving. Why is it okay? The way they would move the wine in recognition of avodah zarah is not in a closed barrel, it's in an open barrel. Some kind of way you could immediately take the wine, and here you can't because it's closed. Or it's sealed rather. That's the best way to touch it. It's sealed, that's not closed. If interesting over here. The guy moves a noi, which is like a wine skin, like a leather pouch of wine, from place to place. Who and he, a yid, according to the Radvaz, it's pshat. Is sealing holding this pouch closed with his hand. The whether or not the pouch was full or empty. Mutter, it's mutter. If it's empty, why would you think it's not mutter? I'm not sure. Not even though it's not even the wine is moving, because when the yid holds it closed, that's considered like it's closed, like it's sealed.
Chaser isn't empty. Chaser just means not totally.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Right. Even though full or is not completely full, it's mutter regardless because that's considered sealed. However, it's a informal closing when you're holding it tight with your hands. However, if you're moving, all the Farshim ask, why does he say earthenware? Who cares what it's made out of? Some people say it's actually a mistake, the word cheres. Rashi says it's a toes. By you it says cheres?
Yeah.
So obviously not a toes. So that's exactly okay. Anyway, so the point is he moved a open barrel full of wine. Also, the wine is usher. Kashem and Nago, but we have to be worried that maybe he touched the wine.
An open barrel.
Oh, right. So it's
The barrel is sealed.
right. Now the since it's both open and full, we have to be chayshish that he touched it.
Yeah.
Now the if you watched him, it's not a problem because he didn't touch it. But the you'll say he moved from side to side, it should be also anyway. So 1 second. If it was not full, it's mutter. Unless he shook it. Oh, in other words, apparently, the idea that heavier kli cheres means the guy transfers it. Yeah, so for some reason over here, even though the guy transfers he transfers the wine, it's still mutter for some reason. I'm not sure why that would be. Okay, I'm not sure why that would be. In other words, heavier here means it could be means he transfers. He doesn't necessarily pour the wine out. Pasha, that would be a problem. But he's moving a barrel from one place to place. So if we're saying over here, if it's not full.
What's a name?
A naid is a pouch. That's a leather pouch.
These leather pouches that they used to have that are shaped like a kid.
It's like a wine skin. It's like yeah. Okay, so
is this barrel that he's moving a closed barrel or an open barrel?
He says that over here. No, heavier kli cheres pasuach mal yain is it's a earthenware barrel. It's open, full of wine. It's usher.
That is the problem.
Shemin, what's heck? Shemin nagabay, maybe he touched it. Not
right.
So
because it's open.
So the chayil say it should be mutter because it should be usher because he moved it. So we saying if it was only half full, mutter, it's mutter alim kimshich unless he shook it. So apparently moving a stamazoi is not a problem. Moving it is considered normal behavior. The guy moves an open barrel, then if you see that it's being done for the purpose of transferring place to place, that's not an issue. When we said earlier, when the guy moves from side to side, it's a problem. That's because we have to she's doing it in a fashion for his avodah zarah. But if it's a barrel, which is normal to store things and transfer things, he's like a worker in a warehouse. That's not a problem unless you have a reason to be that he shook it just for the sake of shaking it. Good, because shaking wine is equivalent to pouring it for the avodah zarah.
So why is this a problem only if it's chaser?
No, it's chaser. It's mutter. He says. What do you mean? Chaser mutter.
The imaya chaser. Oh, mutter.
Yeah. Okay. Goy touches the wine, but he didn't mean to touch the wine. For reasons will become clear soon. Because he touched it, it's us to drink, but you're allowed to have a no since he didn't really intend to touch it. Case for example, if the guy fell upon like a container of wine, or he stuck his hand into the barrel, he thought it was oil. He says, "Let me get some oil." Then he says, "Oh, what's this? It's wine." So it's apparently he didn't have intention to touch the wine, and therefore it's mutar b'hana. But because of the fact that he touched it as archaka, it's also to drink. So it comes out we have here a case where the guy shakes the wine back and forth based on the previous halacha. Again, it's not the same thing as the guy actually it's not as transferring it from place to place. That's a little different apparently. But touching the wine over there, it's also across the board. Okay, vav. If the wine moves because of the guy, but he didn't intend it to, since he didn't touch the wine, right? He didn't touch it, and even he moved it, but even the moving was not kavana. You're allowed to drink it. Even the drink. Case for example, he picks up a keli of wine and pours to another keli, and he thought it was not wine, it was oil or beer. Because Sahi didn't touch it, and Sahi the movement was like kavana. If he knew it was wine, it'd be a problem. We said if he knew it was wine. No, so but
Because that's
the moving the wine is a problem. If the guy moves the wine,
that's what I'm
you know,
trying to
if he pours the wine, it's a problem. Over here, he's not transferring the barrel from this corner to that corner. He's pouring the wine out. That's a whole other problem. Pouring the wine or shaking the barrel from side to side, that's the problem.
So the Nakia is not always negate.
Correct. In other words, yeah, sure. Let's say he's sleeping. Sure, it's mutter, right? Zion. Because again, what the problem here is that if a guy moves the wine or does a service with it for Zaved Zara, it's awesome Zaved Zara. When we have to worry he did something of that nature, it becomes awesome that chashash. Now, if we know for sure that this guy that he's Zaved Zara, what they do is they don't even touch it, they do something else, let's say. So they speak to the wine. And that's the Zaved Zara. And he does, you see him doing it. The wine does him the whole over here is that we don't know what its kavan is. When do we have to assume maybe it's kavan of the zara? And these are cases with assume it maybe it's kavan of the zara if he touches the wine in an intentional fashion, moves it from side to side in an intentional fashion, or pours it in an intentional fashion. That was yesterday's perek. Zayin. What type of guy is included with yesterday's perek? Yeah. Look over there. We talked about yesterday. So if the guy goes to a house or into a store to look for wine, he sticks his hand in the barrel to see what's there, and it turns out it is wine. He didn't know for sure it was wine. That's why he checked. But still, since he's looking for wine, also it's also. The land is covered. He wanted to look for wine. That's not called the touch without kavana. Even though he wasn't sure if it's wine, but because he didn't assume it was something else, that's called kavana, and therefore it's also.
We have to assume over here that the thing was open.
Of course it was open, yeah.
If it was closed.
Well, no, the fact is he touched it over here. He touched it.
No,
if it was closed, you can't touch it.
Oh, he touched the wine?
Yeah, no, the wine. He opened it, yeah. You have a barrel that got split, a crack down the side, top to bottom. The guy comes along and holds it on the sides so that it shouldn't come apart. You're allowed to have enough from the wine, but you're not allowed to drink the wine. Because since the wine is staying in place rather than splatting all over the floor, because the guy's kayach, that's like it's being moved by him or being meant to be moved by him. That's a problem. The same thing. Let's say, for example, if you have a bottle of wine that it tips over, the guy puts his hand to stop the wine from falling. The same problem. If the barrel cracks down the equator, the guy pushes down the top so it shouldn't fall. You're allowed to drink it. The wine is not doing anything because of his koyach. In other words, the wine is pushing. The natural state of the wine is to flow downward into sides. When he holds the barrel together, it's not happening. But the fact that the wine, the crack down the middle, down the waist, so the wine is pushing in all directions. It's not gonna move without him anyways. So the fact that he's pressing his down on top, that this thing the top of the barrel shouldn't move from side to side, that's not a raya that without him it would have moved. Could be that wouldn't have moved. Therefore, it's not considered significant. Test. It's like physics, yeah. A guy falls to a wine pit, and they pull him up, and he's dead. He drank himself to death. Or you're drowned. Or the guy measures the burr with the wine is with like a measure, like a reader, like a measuring or a measuring stick. These are examples again. We don't know if the guy intended to touch it, right? He touched it, but who says it was kavanah to touch it? Well, over here he didn't even touch it; he touched it indirectly, right? Or there's a wasp on the surface of the wine, and he swatched away with a stick. She didn't actually touch it directly. Yeah, or a fly. Or there's a boiling barrel of wine, and he taps it to sort of get the calm down the boiling part. And the Mefarshim ask if it's boiling, it's only yain nesach. But whatever. For example, he takes a barrel, and he's angry at his boss, and he throws it into the wine pit, and he's upset. He said, all these cases, but drink it's usher because again, there's some he touched the pale when he falls and he touched the pale mamish. In other cases, he touched it indirectly. So because he had the shaykhs to the wine, moved it some way, but didn't actually do it necessarily by kavana to. It doesn't seem that it's a way where he wanted to do it for like any kind of ritual circumstance. There was a fly there, for example, in all these other cases. So therefore, it's a mutter bahana, but us to drink as a harchaka. What if you pull him up out of the wine pit and he's still alive, right? Then the wine is also bahana. Over there is a chash that because he fell by accident, because he survived this drowning accident, where Chaysh is going to move the wine to his Avodah Zarah, to honor the Avodah Zarah. Good. Depends how expensive the wine is. If the barrel had a hole in the side, and the cork fell out. Now the wine's spilling out of the hole. And the guy puts his finger in the hole. The wine shouldn't flow out. Let's say it's 6 inches from the top. All the wine from the top of the barrel to those 6 inches now is also because it's being held there by the guy's finger. Also, it's usher.
But what if it's just like a small part of his finger, not enough to wiggle?
No, the difference. The fact is that he's touching the drop of wine, and that consider like all the wine from that hole to the top of the barrel is all as if he's moving it.
But how does that work with the halacha that we had above, that his hand goes in and you drain it from the bottom and the whole thing's fine?
Because over there, it's not he's not preventing the wine from flowing out.
Okay.
So here, the fact is, it has holes in the side of the barrel, and all the wine corresponding to that hole and above is usher. So therefore, if you open it from the bottom and let everything flow out except the top 6 inches, it's mutter, and whatever stays in the barrel is usher. Is usher. We're up to over here. That which is under the hole, mutter b'ashir, that part you're allowed to drink because that's not coming from his kayach. Yud Aleph. Menekes kufufa. This is like a bent pipe. It's like a straw. Like a trick, you can like draw. People do this. They steal gasoline from someone's car. Put a hose in. You draw. You suck with your mouth the gas, and everything flows out. And it goes until it's emptied out. Till whatever all of the liquid that corresponds to the bottom of the hose will go out. To make it out of metal, or glass, anything like that. You put one end into the barrel of wine, one end outside the barrel, like a giant straw. He sucks the wine. And the wine starts going out, which is the common practice to do when you want to transfer wine. Apparently, this is a normal fashion. You just because you leave it overnight, then the whole thing drains itself. If the guy comes along, the guy puts his finger in the straw. Now he stops all the wine from going out. It would have all gone out. We're talking about a case where the bottom of the straw is the very bottom of the barrel, so it all would have gone out. So all the yain in the barrel becomes also for the same reason as before, as like a hole inside the barrel. It would all would have flowed out, not for his finger. So it's like he's holding up all the wine. It's all affected by his power. It's all coming from his koyach. In other words, it's as if he's holding all this wine up from not coming out. So it's like flowing. It's like flowing downward. He's preventing it. So he's holding up the wine kaviyachol. And therefore, it's called it's moving or being prevented from moving rather because of his koyach. It's like he's holding the wine pasha. You'd be basic. Excuse me. When you pour wine into a keli that has yayin nesech, so here's a bowl of yayin nesech, or the guy has a cup full of yayin nesech. He wants some of your wine, and you pour wine into his cup for the guy. The guy gets it at your house, let's say, and he has his own wine. All the wine in the top keli, the bottle you're pouring from, becomes usher. This is not how we always say it benegay to mentara, but benegay yayin nesech, it's an extra chumrah because of the chumrah of the zara. Because the flow of wine, the pour from the bottle to the cup, connects that which is in the bottle, and that which is in the cup on the bottom. If you're pouring wine to a guy, let's say he wants to buy wine, you're pouring it into his, he's in a bar, and you're the balabais, and he pays per cup, and you're pouring wine into his cup. You have to do it in a way that you have to interrupt the column, or use like or throw it in a way that there should never be a time when the flow, if you ever stop, take a picture of it, you never see a picture where you'll see the touching of the flow to the cup and the bottle at the same time. It'll always be broken somewhere. That's how you have to do it. And if you don't do that, it's gonna whatever else remains in the top bottle will be awesome. Yud Gimel. Mashbeich, a funnel. That was used to pour wine to a guy. You have a big barrel, use a funnel to pour into a bottle of the guy or to his cup. What happens if the funnel gets like clogged? Then the yid should not use it. You should not measure for a yid until you dry it out. You wash it out and dry it, because we have to be chayshish that because it was stopped, there was a time when there was that the flow wasn't consistent. Therefore, it wasn't interrupted. In other words, because of the fact that it had this block, you couldn't do this thing in the one shot where it was not ever touching either end. You have to be chayshish the fact that no, because it had this stoppage, the wine in the funnel and the wine in the keli that it was funneling into had a connection, and therefore the funnel now is the wine that's remains there is usher. Then you have to clean it out to dry it. If you don't clean it out and use it as usher, then it's usher. Okay, we're going to skip Alach Yadal, go to Tezvav, and go back to Yadal for reasons why it will become very clear in a minute. Tezvav. A guy Shamatas hayayim min achava sheminekes that sucks the wine out of the bowl with the pipe. Also, Kalyan Sheba, in doing so, when he takes a straw, put the straw in your barrel and starts drinking, immediately all the wine becomes aser. Kishi pasik, and then when he stops, why? Because when he stops drinking, when he starts drinking, it's not a problem. The problem when he stops drinking, all the wine that was in the straw is going to go back. Based on his drawing with his mouth, it's going to be also it's going to fall into the barrel. All becomes usher. So any wine that touched his mouth, that's in the straw, it's going to go back into the barrel, and it's all usher. Now you doubt. They have this kid that has two kinds of straws. The HMN going out of it. Like the kelim that you used to wash your hands, apparently. I don't have a picture, it's not sure what it looks like. It was full of wine, and a Yid had it in his hands with these two straws. Yid was drinking from this straw, and a guy was drinking the other straw, like the picture you have of the kids in Mitzrayim with the blood in the water, right? So mutter, that's mutter. Why? Provided the Yid stops drinking before the guy stops drinking. Because the guy stops drinking, like we said, the wine's going to go back into the barrel, or into this container. The kli that was the wine that was in this spout is going to go back into the keli. And all the remaining wine becomes aser. The wine comes from his koyach, and therefore, as long as the yid stops drinking before the guy stops drinking, it's okay. Otherwise, it's a problem. Test Zion. A guy who was transferring barrels from place to place with the Yid, and the Yid is a Balbas saying he's Goyishib workers and he's following them. Even if he goes from up to a mill, even more maybe. It's not the point is that he goes very far from them, and they can't even see him. It's mutter. The wine is mutter. So why? Because the fear is upon his fear is upon them. He's the boss, his wine. But they say at the Yid's that they again we're talking about people who know they were told not to touch the wine, right? They say that now he's going to come out and he's going to see us. If he tells them, go and I'm coming eventually, but the Vila go. So then already they feel a little bit more secure in being hidden from him. If they're far from him, the point that he can't see. And it's enough that the enough time, the amount of time where they're not visible to this Jew is enough time it takes to open the barrels. And then close it back up and dry it, make it look like they were never opened in the first place. The wine is us to drink, but apparently it's mutter b'hana for reasons why the Pasuk can explain. If it's less than that amount of time, mutter, it's mutter because they're worried about him coming and catching them, and therefore we presume they did not open it. Halacha Yud Zayin. If a person leaves a Goyish worker in the store, right? Let's say Eberus is a Goyish guy in the store, and the Balbas leaves, even though he's coming back and forth all day. And so, in other words, a lot of time he's not there. Yain mutter, wine's mutter. If he tells him I'm leaving, I'm going home, and he leaves him the amount of time it takes to open a bottle, let's say, or a barrel, and close it back up in a way that you could tell it never happened. Now you could dry it. The wine is us to drink, but again, it's mutter b'hana. Because we presume that it's Lav Dafki he did this. No, it's a fark shash because he is afraid of being caught. Apparently, I think that's the slaughter. A person leaves his wine in a barrel, on a boat, with a guy. He goes to the city to do what he's got to do. That's he's traveling by boat. He goes to buy supplies. And he tells it because again, the same the guy is going to say, the Goyish captain, the Goyish worker will say, the Yid's coming any moment and he'll catch me. If he tells him I'm going like for a while, he doesn't tell him I'm coming right back. Again, he leaves about the time it takes to open the barrel and then reseal it and dry it off. The yain is also to drink. Yeah, so basically the Gemara explains what each one, why you would think it applies to Svina, not to it. It's the whole thing why you would think over here applies, doesn't apply. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about sealed barrels. If it's open barrel, which is very easy to just stick your hand in and take it out. I feel like if he doesn't wait any time, once he tells him that he's leaving and Itaka leaves, the yain's also because then the guy feels he can touch it if necessary without being caught. Yudches. You saw a Yid and a guy together. And the Yid leaves open a bottle of wine on the table. And he leaves an open bottle of wine on the counter, which is like the serving table. And the Yid leaves. We're talking about a case where it's the Yid's house, or the Yid's domain. So the wine on the table is usher because the guy feels entitled to take from there. That the wine on the counter is mutter because that's more like who asked you to take wine from the counter. That's not the Baal Bus didn't give it to you yet. If he tells him mix the wine or take wine, help yourself, then call yain hapasuach shabai usher. All the wine in the house is usher because the guy feels entitled to take from the wine. Famous Master Alter Rebbe, when he came out of jail and he went to Bet Misnagan, they told his worker Yiddish, go down to the cellar and bring up some wine. And he felt that he was trying to test Alter Rebbe if he could tell this guy who speaks Yiddish is really a guy. The Alter Rebbe told him afterwards that it was the guy who brought some kind of beer. He told him because you gave the guy a free reign in your wine cellar, now it's all chashay nesa. Okay, Yud test. He was drinking. He was drinking with Ev Kachavim. They were drinking wine together. So the Yid has his cup and the guy has his cup. The Yid hears kedusha. Let's say he wants to go daven. Even the open wine is mutter. The guy says, the guy doesn't know how long mincha takes, right? So he's going to remember the wine. He's going to come right back. He's going to find me touching his wine, and he's going to be caught as a ganav. And therefore, the guy is not going to move and he's not going to touch the wine. The wine in front of the guy is aser, but all the rest of the wine is mutter. Again, the whole point of it is whenever you can have the right to assume that the guy is not going to touch the wine because he's worried about being caught doing something wrong, you have the right to assume he did not touch it. Therefore, it's mutter. When, however, we have to worry that the guy feels confident to touch it without feeling like he's being confronted as doing the wrong thing, we have to be worried that he did touch it. A guy and a Yid who lived in one courtyard. And they all went in a confused state, like in a rush to see to see a wedding or a hesped or a lavaya. The point is, they went with like a rush state. It was like a large commotion. They went outside. The chazak saga Pesach, and the guy comes back and closes the door. Only afterwards the Yid comes. So again, because they went in a confused state, the guy didn't have time to pay attention if the Yid went out or not. The yain in the Yid's house is beheter. Because when the guy closed the door to the courtyard, he assumed that Yid came back already, or he never left in the first place. No one's outside. He thinks he came before him because they left in this confused state, and therefore, because the guy didn't close the door to keep the Yid out, to feel like he can do what he wants. Okay, he thinks he's inside, therefore he's not going to touch the Yid's things. Chav Aleph. You have a wine of a Yid and a guy in one house, and there were open barrels, and the guy goes into the house they live together in, and he closes the door. And all the yain becomes usher because now he's there by himself, doing what he wants. He does what he wants. If there's a window in the door that you could see into what's happening, so all the barrels of wine you could see from any angle in this window are mutter. If it's on the side where you can't see what's happening there, those are usher. Because the guy is afraid of someone seeing him touching the wine. Therefore, the wine you could see is mutter. If a lion roared or something else happened to scare the guy, and the guy went and hid among the barrels, and with the wine is mutter, because he says, maybe Yid's hiding here as well. He's going to see me when I touch it. Therefore, again, when that chesed, the guy is going to touch the wine. He's afraid of being caught. You have a storage of wine, a cellar of wine. It had open barrels, and the guy has his own barrels in that same storage place. You find the guy standing around the barrels with the Yid's barrels that are open. So even if when you confront him, you see him, it's clear he feels like he was caught doing the wrong thing, he shouldn't be there. You can drink the wine. Because the assumption is if he's doing there, he knows he's not supposed to be there, he's not going to make it worse by touching what he's not supposed to touch. And therefore he's afraid to touch it. If he seems confident and calm when you catch him, he feels confident where he's not caught like a ganev. He's standing there confidently. Also, the wine's also and when a baby is among the barrels, either way the wine's mutter because the baby does not make the wine also. Again, if you see him touch the wine, it would be a problem, but but over here he didn't see him touch it. If we don't have to assume he touched it,
What if you do see the baby touching the wine? Why
then
would
it could
that
be also.
The baby is at an age where he
No,
knows
but
it's
we said that yesterday. If you see him actually touch it, and taka, it's a problem. To drink.
But he doesn't have a couple of front.
Yeah, but we said in Perek, in Halacha Hey, yesterday's Perek, that if he touches it, it's us to drink. But Hanar, it's mutter.
Okay.
Because here we don't if we touch the Bechlal.
Yeah.
Chav Gimel. Sorry, Chav Dalet. The condition is a battalion of soldiers comes to a country and they're in a time of peace, just passing through and training. The open barrels in the stores are usher, and the closed ones are mutter. When it's a time of war, if the battalion spreads throughout the city and moves on, they don't stay around there plummeting. They're both mutter, even if it's open. They don't have time for the libation because they're busy escaping. The guy is standing next to a pit of wine. If he lent the Yid money and the Yid promised him to pay back with the wine if the time comes. So even though the time didn't come yet, it's also. He feels like a hamish by this wine. He's going to touch it. If he has no halv on it, that's mutter because it's not his touch. A non-Jewish harlot by a Jewish party, the wine is mutter. Because she knows she's not the boss, she's not allowed to touch it, she's not going to touch it. A Jewish harlot by a Geisha party, so she has her own private wine, that wine is usher. They'll touch it without her, they don't care what she thinks, she's not a very high class citizen. A guy that's in a wine press, if the wine press has no wine in it, but there's moisture on it, and it's enough moisture, if he touches it with this hand, touches his hands together, the other hand will get wet. You have to after that you have to dry the whole entire press out and wash it and dry it. If it's more dry than that, you just have to rinse it. If it's you say this is an extra chumrah because it's just necessary to you don't have to even wash it. You for sure don't have to dry it if it's b'chal dry. You have a barrel floating down the river. It means it's connected to the ear. We saw if you find the barrel by a city that's mostly Jews with teres fahanoy, it's allowed to benefit from me. You can't drink it though. Connected issue will be sorry if it's a connected to the city that's mostly grain. It's also last test. A place majority of the wine sellers were Yidden. It was Jewish business, but most of the residents were goyim though. You have large kelim of yain. It's usually commercial sized barrels. You're allowed to benefit from it. You cannot drink it though because majority of the residents are goyim. But in Hanar it's mutter though. A barrel that was opened by Ganovim. Your house is broken into. Your factory is broken into. Now all the wine barrels are open. If the most of the thieves there are Yidden, like in Warsaw before the war, you could drink the wine. If not, usher. It says Gemara, yeah, right. In that, in the Bagazlonim are right.